Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the SimGrid Endurance Cup. We are here for Season 2, and the much-anticipated Season 2, I must say, starts here at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. My name is Chaz Draycott, and joining me in the commentary box today, I'm delighted to have with me my partner in crime, Connall, Courtney. Connall, we had a fantastic time last season with this championship, and to be honest, it's come around so quickly once again, hasn't it?
It really has, and I'm very excited now that we get into a Season 2. We have narratives coming into the season, whereas at the start of the first season, we didn't really know much about the teams, about the drivers. Now we have, I can already see in the entry list, many teams that have swapped cars, swapped drivers. There's a bit of transfer market action going on, so it'll be very interesting to see how this season pans out.
Yeah, that's one of the most exciting parts of getting into a new season. New liveries to get used to, new teams, and new driver names that we're going to have a lot of fun, I'm sure, trying to pronounce and probably butchering somewhat. But what a circuit to start at. Let's talk about Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. It's been a staple on the Formula One calendar for a very long time. And while it has had changes here and there, let's not talk about that final chicane, it's one of the old classics, isn't it? It's been around for a long time.
Yeah, it's familiar with every fan's hearts, either new or old. A lot of long corners, especially that turn 3. That's going to be a killer on tyres. It's going to be very interesting now to see how the drivers and the cars will cope with the tyre degradation at this track.
Yeah, the front lefts around here are going to be the ones that take all the punishment. You've got a very fast turn 3, as Connall has alluded to there. I think it's potentially turn 7 as they go up the hill. There's a long right-hander as well before the straight into that hairpin that you can see there, and then the final chicane, and even the last corner as well. You know, you're on the throttle down the hill, out of the last corner, down towards the straight, and then turn 1 as well. I mean, all the slow corners are usually the left-handers around here, so to be honest, these drivers have got a lot of work to do on those front lefts, haven't they? And you mentioned before, there's somebody in this series in the Lexus as well, and that thing kills its tyres from your experience.
Yeah, quite a few Lexuses. I'm surprised because, well, at least in my experience, I haven't been able to make the Lexus work in terms of managing tyre life as good as a car it is. And pretty crucially, for those who are following us with the Season 1 Endurance Cup, the Coach Dave Academy car have taken on the challenge of trying to get this Lexus through 4 hours of Catalonia and, of course, throughout the rest of the season. So it's going to be very interesting to see those guys perform. Obviously, we know that Coach Dave Academy have just recently released Lexus setup, so if you're a Lexus fan like myself, definitely go take a look at them. But yeah, the Lexus has more entries than I expected, shall we say. So I'm very curious on a personal level as well to see how they perform.
And there you go then. There is the slide from Michael. Love it. And obviously Mike Yao as well, by the way, doing our broadcast again this afternoon. And so too, we have Michael Hamlet with us, providing all of the background info as ever. He's currently just doing the driver's briefing with everybody. And I mentioned very briefly as well the liveries. Now, usually in the SimGrid, we don't always see custom liveries from drivers. You know, it can affect servers, and you know, with Mike as well having his replays and having 2 PCs minimum running on these things, we do have custom liveries in, and here is one of them now, the Sidemax Motorworks car of George Boothby in the wonderful Mercedes AMG GT3. Now, it's great to see some of them out there, isn't it, really? Because if I'm honest, Connall, we saw a few of them change mid-season last season, and we'd go up to a race meeting and go, hang on a minute. So it makes our job a bit easier.
Yeah, and we even seen, if we go back to Spa, with a couple of disconnects between teams, we even seen liveries change during the same race. So it was a little difficult for us to keep track of things. But hopefully now we'll see similar patterns. There's some striking liveries out there, and we'll get very familiar as the season progresses.
We have actually got quite a few Lamborghinis out there as well at the moment. I'm just counting them now. There is at least 5. Let me have a look. I think there may be even about 9. But we were just looking there at the Team 99 car. This is the Huracan Drive Endurance. That's fantastic. Love the team names, by the way. Yeah, we were looking at Team 99 a moment ago, which annoyingly a number's 435. So, again, we had, what was it, Team Silver last season that were in a red car that wasn't even in the silver class. So these teams love being out there to hurt my OCD, don't they?
Yeah, it seems that way. I don't know. Maybe they're getting back at you for pronouncing your name wrong, or for their name wrong. But yeah, I don't know what the problem is, Chad.
Well, to be honest, Courtney, we'll have to find out over the course of the season. Doesn't look like we've got Veshite out there this season. We're just having a cut. Oh no, we do. Yeah, Lucas Rommel, Nicholas Bosselet, Adam Chemlevsky, and Alexander Sabel in the McLaren this season. Now, they were in a Porsche last time out, and I think, again, just going over the whole sort of new season, new stuff, it's the car changes as well, because look at that Ren Welton Pro team that won the championship, running that number one. They're in a BMW M6 GT3 after being in the Porsche last season. That's a big change.
Yeah, it is a big change in terms of, like, the two cars are almost polar opposites. You see the thickness of that BMW right on screen, and yeah, it's very interesting to go, of course, as we see contact there in free practice. That's not how you want to start off your title defending campaign. But normally when you see a driver or a team win the championship, they stick with what they know, because obviously they have a good base setup, obviously, because they won the championship last season. So
yeah,
they're taking a bit of a gamble with the BMW. Obviously they've found something with the BMW and these tracks and testing prior to signing up for this season. But I mean, you've got Chris Hoke, Samir Ibrahimi and Vicky Thompson, so we know the quality of those drivers. They are champions for a reason, and no doubt they'll be up at the sharp end in a BMW.
And don't forget as well, the BMW actually won the Nürburgring 24 Hours in real life this year, before the M6 gets phased out to be taken over by the M4 that they've brought out recently. They've certainly won one of the big ones. This is the Coach Dave Academy Lexus RCF GT3 with Joe McCauley at the wheel. Now, you and I both have experience commentating on Joe before, when we saw him in the SimGrid Sprint Cup at Brands Hatch, the round that I commentated on there, where it was leathering it down, and he won both races by an absolute country mile, which really did prove the one thing that everybody always says about that Lexus: it's great in the rain.
Yeah, Joe, I mean, I think out of all the SimGrid races I've seen, and I've watched pretty much all of them, or covered them, I think that was the biggest winning margin that I've seen, bar a 24 or 12-hour endurance race. So Joe really did look it was like, it was a GT3 versus GT4, really, wasn't it? It looked that way. Joe just walked away as it made things look very, very easy, which it's not. No,
it's not. That's the thing, and people often underappreciate how difficult this can be. But we are just going to go around a lap of Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, and we're going to guide you around the circuit and how is probably best to guide your machine around here, and man and machine in perfect harmony. And of course, in the Aston Martin V8 Vantage GT3, the absolute roaring monster that is the Aston Martin. So down the straight then, up through the gears, across the timing line, which is really quite early on in the straight, on the power for what feels like an absolute age. You'll see a lot of these cars geared to go all the way down the straight without hitting the limiter. Onto the brakes, use a lot of the Astro on the left-hand side, but not too much to get track limits. Now, there's a bit of an odd camber here. Both corners are on camber, but the curbs are off camber, so you don't want to hit them too hard through 1 and 2. Get it hooked in nice and early at turn 3, because you've got to plan when the car's going to run wide all the way around the outside. Again, using the Astro to your advantage, not too much of it. Onto the brakes then, into turn 4. Long right-hander again. You've got to be very careful on the power. Just make sure you don't run out too wide. There's a bit of curb there just to help you. Onto the brakes into turn 5. Now, downhill left-hander. It feels like the car really gets away from you here. Again, on the power as soon as possible. Don't light up the rears too much. You'll see a lot of drivers sliding on the way out of there. Now into 6 and 7. Uphill. The grip suddenly comes to you when you turn in, so you'll see a lot of cars rotating into there, maybe overdo it on the exit. Now, the blind apex, turn 8, long right-hander, blind exit as well over the top of the hill. Plenty of runoff, which the drivers will need. Then onto the brakes hard into turn 9, just before the bridge. Get it almost stopped. It's the slowest corner on the circuit. Back up the hill on the power. Now, the left-right section here is really difficult as well, because you've got that weight transfer to the left, and then to try and get it settled to the right and get it all the way around that corner is very difficult. More runoff here, and then into this final, what I think is horrible chicane. Down the hill through the right, really stop the car again as well. over the left, over the right. Don't hit too much curb. Mind the big sausage curb on the exit, and then get it hooked up for the final corner. Again, not too much curb on the inside because it can easily spit you out wide. And that is a lap of Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya in the Aston Martin V8 Vantage GT3. And to be honest, Connall, above everything else, that car makes one hell of a noise, doesn't it?
Yeah, we always talk about the Aston just sounding like a proper GT3 race car. It's beastly, and if you're ever sitting in the stands, if you ever get the chance to go to a GT race at some point in your life and you sit in the stands, the echo from that Aston Martin is something to behold. And it doesn't go half bad either, and we see quite a few Aston Martins here. It's really interesting, of course, to see such a variety of cars. So we've seen the Sprint Cup and Endurance Cup in Season 1 was very Porsche heavy, shall we say. It was sometimes it resembled a Porsche Cup. So now with the new, of course, we have custom BOP being used within the sim grid that has evened things out, and it has resulted in quite a wide variety in the field. Of course, we see new teams such as the Jean Alesi Esports Academy team are running the Aston Martin. Looking through the order, some more JS, the junior team run Aston Martin, and then you of course have the Mercedes, BMWs, with the Ferraris still being in play. A lot of Lamborghinis, which is quite a far cry from Season 1, really.
Yeah, well, we had the one Lamborghini in Season 1, and they did a really good job with it, to be fair. They were always right up there in the order, but this time round we've got a big helping of them, and like you say, John Alesi Esports Academy, having those guys in there is fantastic. Really exciting to see. We were just looking a moment ago at the number 87 car, which is the Rookie Monsters Fordzilla machine. There's a couple of teams there with Fordzilla drivers in, and I happen to know Jack Ashton is part of Fordzilla, and that team's been doing a great job since its inception. But this is the 2C's Endurance Team white car of Alexander Karsten, the Dutch driver. Obviously says he's 35th at the moment, but no laps done. But that Lamborghini with its 5.2 litre V10 shares the same engine as the Audi R8 in most respects anyway. It's a very good looking and very good sounding machine, that Lambo. But just going back to that the track guide though, Connall, you can see in places here in these GT3 cars, while they do often look planted when we watch them go around a lap, it's a bit of a slippery circuit. I mean, it's got nothing on the Turkish Grand Prix obviously this weekend based on what I've seen online, but it's one of those tracks where there's a lot of really long corners that either tighten or open up on the exit, and the car can just get away once you get on the throttle or get onto the brakes again, can't it? So it's a bit of a difficult one.
Yeah, very easy for the rear to let go, and especially we're coming out of here, you're desperate to get on the power early. You don't want to run too wide, of course, with track limits, and then you're barreling down into again a turn 4, a long right-hander, trying to get on the power early. You want to get that drive, but it can just break loose so easy, and it just spoils your run. And I think in terms of the car breaking loose and ruining your lap, I think what we're about to drop down into here is probably the biggest time loser if your car does indeed break loose. Because look at this, you're hitting left, if the car break loose here, you've got a big climb up the hill, and that can take ages if you feel like you haven't got the run there. It feels like you're losing about 2 seconds in the car, and you've got a big long run down this back straight. So it's going to be very crucial, of course. A lot of drivers you see when they get tire troubles actually start to V the corners off by parking it, picking it up early and gunning it out of the corner instead of carrying that sort of traditional wide sweeping line. So look out for the sort of adaptations from these drivers as the race progresses and their tires degrade.
Yeah, that's the main thing with endurance racing, isn't it? You have to take what comes to you and work with it, basically. Just get on with it. This is the Program Welton machine, Chris Hoke at the wheel, and it's a very good looking M6, that car, and we do wish them the best with this championship. I'm just going to see how many M6s we have on the grid this season. Actually, I don't think we have any more than just them. There's oh no, there is another one actually. Niels Nuyox and Arthur Camera for G2 Esports are out there as well. I think that's it. It is. So it's just the 2 M6s. The big beefy boys, the thick boy as it's known, and you can see that Chris Hoke not happy with that lap there, so he's pulled over and gets out of the way, but he carries on and finds the space to then go back out on his lap. This is Marek Schintz for Racing Line Motorsport. Now these guys were running a pair of different cars in the Spa 24-hour not too long ago. Very nice livery on that Ferrari, but they were running an Audi and a Bentley back then, weren't they?
Yeah, it's really interesting for a team to run two different cars. Obviously, it'll probably come down to the more obvious answer of the drivers on either team, like the style of one car better. But normally, when you have two teams driving the same car, you've just doubled the data that you can get and double the feedback that you can then tweak and work on your setup. So it can be very beneficial in that way. But at the same time, it is competition and it is sport, and you want both your teams to perform as best as they possibly can. So if the other drivers don't like X car, they can then move to Y. So yeah, we've seen them, of course, in the Bentley, and it's an interesting move. Of course, we're seeing so many of these teams just swapping cars, but they're obviously confident enough that they can adapt to it, because if you're the reigning champs, we said earlier, if you're the reigning champs moving to a new car at the start of the season, there is a reason for it. It's not that they just fancy the change. This is too important to them to just go, well, we fancy a change, let's move car. There's more behind it than that. Yeah,
some of the teams, they want to give themselves a challenge on a larger scale sometimes. We're looking at Jaroslav Honzik, obviously Jardiate food critics at the moment. I wonder what they're going to think when they come up against the number 58 car, which is named Smoked Salmon and Fries, which to me sounds very good right now, if I'm honest. But it's nice to see some more Mercedes out there. I think we only had one or two last season. I must be mistaken, unless I'm thinking of another series that we're running. It was just the one. I remember particularly, I'm trying to find the driver's name that was behind the wheel of that car now, but there was, he's not in the split, I've just been told. But we had a couple of drivers that were, it was Martin Larenc, that's the name I'm thinking of, in the blue Mercedes, and well, a very similar sort of performance to them. They were around the top 10 all the time. But here's one of the other ones, Dare McCormack for Fordzilla Williams Jim. Again, having Williams on board as well. Fantastic for the championship. That's a really good combination. That he's got Charlie Crossland in that number 66 car with him. Certainly stands out with the bright pink. But looking at the times at the moment, Connall 69 thousandths of a second with Giovanni De Salvo just off the top spot. It's going to be very, very feisty this season. And look at that, half a second covering the top 14. And then it's not even a second covering the top 24. That's absolutely bonkers, that is.
Yeah, it's insanity. And De Salvo, of course, the winner of the Ferrari Hublot E-Series event, the championship there. So we've got some big names in this. I've just seen on the entry list for GTWR Simulator Jane Truck, the number one, Jordan Sherritt. Of course, if you're following the SimGrid World Cup, you will know that Jordan Sherritt, one of the fastest drivers out there, and just looking absolutely dominant in the SimGrid World Cup in terms of his pace. Not with his usual teammates though in the World Cup. He's got Giorgio Simeone in the GTWR team. There is a second GTWR team with Dondi, who is part of the World Cup team. But then you have Statsenko, who is driving for Yas Heat. So some of the familiar teammates are going to find themselves racing against each other in this Endurance Cup. So they'll know each other like the back of the hand, of course, being teammates. So it'll be interesting to see if they get into a battle, how they'll deal with each other.
Yeah, that's one of the joys of it as well, when you have different things. We've got Shadia's stream on screen now, by the way, so you can all see how he's getting on. Obviously, if you do want to go and watch him, make sure you've got two screens so you can watch one stream on each. But in all fairness, though, I agree with you, Connall. It's going to be great to see how some of these drivers get on, because of the fact that they often drive maybe on their own or drive as a driver pairing in different events. And then when you get into a different championship like this, suddenly it gets mixed up and people go off and race for other teams and so on. And it's nice to see that. That promotes the whole sort of sim racing community vibe that you get. Nobody's under contract unless it's a very serious racing team in sim racing. And, you can just go and enjoy the racing, or just go and help out another team that if your driver lineup is full. I've been sort of subject to that before, where people have said, why don't you just come and join us for this event and do like the Petit Le Mans or the 24 Hours of Spa. Jordan Sherritt, though, in that Lamborghini, has put it on pole at the moment for the GTWR Simulator Gian Truck team. ahead of Garcia. 0.006 of a second between them. Not even a tenth between the top three. So somehow, Connall, we've got to cope with this season. That's absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, they're sending us into an early retirement home, aren't they, these guys? I mean, we've had a Sprint Cup and Endurance Cup Season 1. And I tell the story quite a lot, that we went into the Endurance Cup Season 1 just anticipating, a proper endurance style race where we would have to have a bit of filler in between certain aspects. There'd be a lull in the race. And it was just basically 3 hours of a sprint race, the way the guys were driving. And with the times as close as this, I mean, half a second, 17 drivers. Can you just imagine if you were in that car and you seen your pit board, or you're being told by your engineer you're half a second off, thinking, oh, it's good, top 5 or something, and you find yourself in 17th. I mean, look at that, Chris Hoke in the the reigning champions. They're 38th at the minute, but they're 1.2 seconds off. 38th.
That is scary, and there's a lot of drivers that are only thousandths of a second apart. I mean, we've got 24th and 25th. Wenlock was actually tied with Noyox in the number 62 BMW. There is Owen in the number 97 Sidemax Motorworks Mercedes. And ahead of that as well, there's 3 thousandths between De Alcamo and Pagadol. And then there's only 6 thousandths ahead of Simpson and Conto-Giannis, who are both tied on times as well. It's just absolutely insane, this. And Michael was saying beforehand that we've got no classes to worry about this season because it was that difficult to separate them out that there was just no way, no possible way of doing it. So we've got one outright championship. And while that does make things a little bit easier for us, it makes it harder for all of the drivers out there because they've not just got the drivers in their class to think about, have they?
Yeah, we were talking about that in the World Cup, was the risk management we always talk about when you're battling. If you're a pro driver and you're battling with a silver class driver or vice versa, do you push and fight for that position when there is no championship implications? Unfortunately now, well, maybe fortunately, it takes a bit of the thinking out for these drivers because every position now is a battle for championship position. So it's just full on attack, and that's what we're going to see after this qualifying session.
And only 7.5 minutes to go now. Flies by. And to be honest, I think the race is going to do the same. 4 hours around here at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. And there is the number 62 G2 Esports BMW. Niels Noyox behind the wheel of that car. Another really striking livery there. And again, I will reiterate that it's great to see some of these custom liveries because, as he goes through the foam boards there, it's just nice to see what these drivers can do with these cars and develop them from, obviously, the usual liveries that we do see in the real world events. And I think that there's the like and subscribe team. We didn't get to see their livery last season, but that's a very, very good looking Mercedes. And that, to be fair, Mike Yao was saying beforehand, Chaz is getting all excited about these custom liveries. Most of them are black and red, though. So I've not been handed the most diverse plate of liveries here to ogle, because in most of my broadcasts, all I do is get excited about liveries. But still, it's better than just seeing the standard game ones that we get. As we very unfortunately timed look at the Race for Cat David Martinez car. But that, to be fair, David Martinez and the Race for Cat team, they did an amazing job at Silverstone last season, didn't they? So they're definitely ones to watch.
Yeah, exploded into the scene, really. I mean, they had a DNF at Monza, and then came out of nowhere at Silverstone. They qualified. I think they were on pole, or at least in the front row, and it was sort of mixed conditions. It was a bit dodgy on track conditions wise, but then they got out into the race, and dry or wet, they were absolutely flying. So yeah, definitely ones to watch. Didn't make many mistakes throughout the duration of a race, so it'll be interesting to see this Race for Cat team. Of course, really outside championship contenders, really, in Season 1 after that Silverstone performance, but just couldn't get it done. That Monza DNF has really, really hurt their chances in Season 1. A DNF really does hurt. I mean, we've talked about it before, but championship points for all positions, so even just a finish, no matter how far down the order, still salvages you some points as opposed to a DNF. So I think hopefully they've learned from that and will be trying everything possible to finish these races.
Yeah, that's the thing. you need to push on to the end and make sure that you get as much out of the car as you can. And I've seen events recently, people will get a drive-through or have a spin or an incident, and they'll just quit. And it's quite disheartening, even from a spectator or commentator's perspective, because you know that these drivers put a lot of effort and time into this, and to see that it can very quickly sort of fall down like that, then it just hurts. I mean, I've seen it in a lot of series, whether it be an endurance race or in sprint racing as well, where people will just think, I can't do anything from here, there's no point. But you wouldn't see that in the real world. They know that they have to compete, they're paying the money for it, and I think that's one of the main differences that we see from sim racing. There's one of the side max Mercedes flies over the curb. We're looking at the Forza Italia PL esports team of Adam Dubiel at the moment. That's a really nice looking car as well. It's like a variation on the usual livery that you see on that car with the fluoro yellow. We're certainly not going to miss that one. He crosses the line. 37th at the moment on a 1:43.2. And that's the thing as well. It's not a short lap round here in these cars. It's nearly 2 minutes. And they're separated by thousandths of a second. It's brilliant. That really shows it, because if it was a tiny, tiny lap that took about 50 seconds, then you could understand the small differences. But we're talking nearly 2 minutes of driving to be separated by thousandths of a second. It's mega. It really is.
Yeah, we see these sorts of gaps at like Brands Hatch Indy or Knockhill or something like that. To see it at Catalonia is really surprising, and it's long and it's technical too. And there's a lot of corners where if you don't get the drive, you really will just kill your own lap time. So for the closeness of this, it's just stunning. And these drivers are scary in their competitiveness. They're hungry for it. But on pole at the minute, the Jean-Elise Esports Academy team, that number 27 car, a beautiful Aston Martin, 1:42.2 is the current pole time. Track grip is optimum and track temperature is 23 degrees, so we're running just about perfect conditions for this qualifying session. So we are going to see some cracking times, and we already have. I mean, when you look at down the order, I try and put it into perspective this way. If you time 1 second in your head, you count not one, and you think in that time 30 drivers have gone past you, 30 cars flew past you. That is how close it is. I mean, sometimes it's easy to look at 9/10 of a second or a second gap and think, wow, he's miles away. But when you put it in the scale, it really is not that far away at all. So we see Jordan Sherritt, the pace man at the Sim Grid World Cup. He is 10th up on this lap currently on the pole position time. Will he go to the top in that Lamborghini? New car, of course, for Jordan, running the Audi in the World Cup in the GTWR team. There is 2 GTWR teams to look out for. There's just the GTWR and there's the GTWR Simulator GN Truck teams. So sister teams here in the Lamborghini and the Lexus. And then, of course, we have the Yas Heat team, which is the other GTWR driver in the World Cup, Mikhail Statisenko. So Jordan Sherritt trying to get the run out of the last corner. Very important run out of the last corner. Easy to run on and exceed track limits and validate lap. He goes across the line. He takes pole by a relatively gargantuan 1.174 of a second.
Nicely done by Jordan Sherritt. Fantastic stuff in that Lamborghini, and it's nice to see the Lambo being competitive again. We've got a lot of Mercedes up there, to be fair. 8 of them in the top 11, just showing you how powerful that Merc is, and I didn't really expect it to be the OP car. Apologies for the silence a moment ago. There was an issue with my Discord. It wouldn't let me unmute, but I was going to say, when you said about how close all these cars are if they all came past you at once, I know that certain games and platforms all over the world can sort of provide ghost cars when you see the laps. It would be amazing to see just a bunch of them all together, wouldn't it, with the pace these guys are putting in, and just see visually how close that all is.
Would probably melt my screen or my computer, Chaz, with how tight there'd be and the amount of cars there. But yeah, I mean, normally if you have a race and you see 10 drivers covered by a second, you think, wow, that's a tight race. I mean, we can't even see how far down covers a second there with the top 23. We can only see 23 drivers there. That is how close it is. 8 tenths cover 23. I mean, that's phenomenal. We're seeing drivers there, of course, you see 22nd, 23rd, identical lap times. And I mean, you think of, well, we've just cut the Wadlick and Tavern all on identical lap times again. The two guys in front of them, identical lap times. It's just unbelievable. And you think a 3,000ths of a second gets you up a position in certain cases. 3,000ths of a second is the difference in a gear change going a couple of hundred revs earlier or later. And that's what we're dealing with, these minute differences. And these minute differences will cost somebody a championship.
I've got a new favourite livery. It's the smoked salmon. To be fair, it's probably my favourite team name as well, smoked salmon and fries. This is Christopher Tverain, and that is an old Benetton livery, which absolutely... Oh, he's decided he's going to go in the pits a bit late. That looks absolutely phenomenal on that car. Really love that. But yeah, we're already at the end of the session, and Jordan Sherritt, 216 thousandths of a second, known to you and me as 0.2 of a second, faster than Garcia. We still have drivers, though, finishing their laps. Alexander Karsten has finished his lap, but he's still going around at pace, getting that extra lap of recon in. And oh my goodness, it's a McLaren. It's Nicolas Bosselay in the Vicite car. And he's 2 tenths up on his current lap at the moment, I've been told. So we'll have to see how he gets on. That'll put him way up the order. See where he goes.
2 tenths will put him in the top 10. He's currently 15th.
It's crazy, isn't it? Crazy difference. Goes for the line then. The timing line's quite early down the straight, as I said before. Puts him 10th. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Only 12 thousandths faster than Ogorodnikov. And only a few thousandths behind Honsick, of course, Jardier. Well, that has absolutely flown by Connall, but a very deserving pole sitter. And I mean, that can't have been an easy session, because while we were saying it is a long lap round here, this is one of those tracks that can feel so cramped all the time, can't it?
Yeah, and when it's one of these tracks that when things aren't going right, they're really not going right. You know, if you're not 100% comfortable with your car, it feels like an absolute nightmare to drive. When you get it on form and you get that sort of rhythm going and that flow, as we see Jordan Sherritt did, the only driver in a 41s. When you get that flow, this track is a very fun track to drive. But I mean, just looking at those times, last laps, so you can see the reds indicate an exceeding of track limits. That's going to be very important, because there is a few places, especially if you're in a battle, where you can run on quite easily and exceed track limits. And with how close these times are, there's the last thing you want is drive through penalty. Oh
yeah, especially with how close it is, like you said, mate. The whole field is going to be so compressed this season, and that's why I love that we've got these longer races. The drivers at the front are going to want to just drive away with this once they're in the lead and try and clear off, but that's pretty crazy, to be honest. I think that if you're trying to get through the field, that's going to be the hardest job, because you can try and get to the front and everyone will be attacking you, but it's probably best to just say, right, I'll just hold back a bit, let these guys go through, and then we'll try and just stick with them and move forward, because you're going to see teams working together here, aren't you, to try and bridge that gap back to the field.
Yeah, and we've seen that in the GT4 launch night race, actually, when we did driver interviews afterwards. We heard from one of the drivers saying that they were actually communicating between each other to say, hello, let's work together and let's not cause ourselves any harm. And they actually caught up to the leading group. And then that's when they had their battle. And that is smart. It's very frustrating when, especially if you're supporting a driver or a rider, when you're watching him and he's being passed constantly and he's tapping the seat or he's making signals to follow and the other drivers aren't adhering. It can be very frustrating, because one's seeing the bigger picture and one's just seeing a car in front of them and looking to make the pass. But at the same time, at the end of the day, everyone is there for themselves and for their own teams. And yeah, the varying interests is what makes racing so exciting.
It does indeed. So that was qualifying for the first round of Season 2 of the SimGrid Endurance Cup here at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. We're going to be back with you with the second stream, which of course is the 4-hour race, starting at 1:45 GMT, so in about 20 minutes' time. If you catch us there, you will then see all of the action all the way through. Connall and I will be guiding you through that one. There's a very, very pretty livery on the 629 machine. Huge fan of that. That is the NBR team. But still, thank you, Connall, very much for joining me here. Thanks, Mike Yao, for the stream. We'll be going again very soon. My name is Chaz Draycott, and he has been Connall Courtney, or Courtney Connall, whatever you want to call him. We'll see you at 1:45 GMT.